Hello, everyone, and welcome again to another Teacher Joseph podcast. Today, we're going to talk about secrets of language learning. And before you get too excited, I can tell you that there isn't really one magical thing. You know, when some people book lessons on italki, they think I'm Harry Potter. They give me X amount of money and I use my magic and make their English perfect. Well, it doesn't work that way, unfortunately. But there are a few things which you can do to make your English journey easier. Let me explain. So, one of the biggest problems that I can see of language learners these days is they're usually not in touch with their feelings so much. English is something that they make, something that they do while they go to work, wash the car, look after the children. English is in there for 5 minutes, maybe half an hour or an hour if they're lucky. It's kind of like a chore. It's kind of like, what can I say, something which is there to be done alongside putting out the trash. It's not something enjoyable. It's not something of any consequence. It's just there. And I hear that a lot from people. Some people book English lessons with me just so they have an English lesson. But if I ask them what they've done in the last week, what's been happening, I don't get responses. I simply get, oh, this is my English lesson time. Did you do anything during the week? No. So it seems to me that many people feel that English is something that you simply do. And they think that you just take words, you put them inside your mind, you take some grammar, you practice it, and that's it. English comes. Well, I can tell you that for those kinds of people, they will get a certain amount of English, yes. After all, a lot of the world speaks English, and if you look at Europe, at European Standard English, and countries like the Netherlands and Sweden, yes, English in that way is quite easy to come by. But what you really should be searching for is something a little bit more authentic, rather than English simply being something that you do. It should be something that you are becoming. There should be authenticity there. Let me explain a little bit further. We're living in a time where we don't really know too much about our different identities. Everything is placed in a box. This is the working me. This is a home me. This is me as a father. This is me as a musician. This is me as an English teacher. And this is me as a cook making dinner. But we don't often bring those things together. And the reason why we don't is because we're probably afraid that people are going to reject us if we reveal different parts of our identities. But yet, learning language kind of demands that you integrate. It's kind of like an invitation to bring all of these parts together to make you whole. English can cross boundaries. It can cross between your separations and your different identities to become each and every one of those. You can bring English to all of the things that you do in life. It doesn't have to be separate. And I think the people who are most successful at learning are people who become aware of this, that English is not something that you do, as well as putting out the trash and walking the dog. English has a much deeper place. Why does it have a much deeper place? Well, probably because it's it's enabled to enter your consciousness, your belief system. It's able to penetrate your mind in a way that other tasks can't. What happens though, if you keep it on a superficial level, it's not going to penetrate anything except maybe in communication skills with a language partner. So you really need to be working with it in a way that it's going to become a deeper experience for you. How do you do that? With authenticity. When you're meeting a language partner or a teacher, don't just talk about the dog that lives around the corner, or yes, I have a dog, I have brothers and sisters, I live in a house, it has 3 rooms, etc. This kind of stuff is soul destroying. It's mechanical. And perhaps it's a reflection of the way we live our lives, because I don't think many of us are authentic anymore with ourselves or with other people. But in learning English, it gives you a chance to change. It gives you a chance to be different, and it gives you a chance to be honest. So when you're creating discussions with language partners, you want to try to make them more soulful. If you're stuck for conversation, go to a site like esldiscussions.com, where you can find a list of topics to discuss. Write out your own questions. Try to get into the person's mind. Try to enter into the culture of the English world. Try to see where we're coming from. The English culture, like all cultures, is a little bit crazy, especially with our politeness and our other eccentricities and things that we do. I mean, I won't even text someone if I'm lying in bed. I have to be fully dressed before I can text people or send a WhatsApp message. These kind of things. I'm just using this as an example and as a joke, but my point is you need to begin exploring authentically the language and also who you are. This is a perfect opportunity for you to explore bits of yourself that maybe you've forgotten about, you know. You can ask questions about another person's life, why things are done in a particular way. Do you remember that childlike curiosity that we used to have when we were 9 or 10? We weren't afraid to ask why. You need to kind of get back to that, because if you don't, what's going to be left is a very mechanical being in English, which is going to be a very cheap forfeit of yourself, a very cheap facsimile. This is a perfect opportunity to bring yourself alive. Let me just explain a few other things that might help you to do that. Ask teachers very direct questions about English life and culture. If you say things incorrectly, they'll tell you. Ask your language partners quite authentically to explain things about life and culture. Don't be afraid with English essays to try to bring about some deeper version of what you want to say. If you look at an IELTS question, for example, the questions are usually designed so that someone who describes the thing they're asking for can describe it on many levels. I'll give you an example. The question is, describe a beautiful place. Now you can take that anywhere where you want to go. It doesn't have to be, oh, there's a house on my street which looks very nice, it is red, it is big. Questions like this can be handled in a much deeper way, which also would give you a higher mark. These kind of exam questions are open so that people on every level of English can reach them. Let me just try to answer that question. Describe a beautiful place. Okay, the beautiful place is big. The beautiful place is red. It has many things to do. It is nice. I was there last week. It is a church. It has seats. It has windows. Good answer. basic, but okay. But you're not showing people the best of what you can do. With a little bit of practice, you can be much more authentic by using different language. Listen to this. I remember my grandmother and I were out walking the other day when we really did discover a wonderful jewel. It was a church which towered above the landscape. Compared to other places that I've seen in my life, this place almost certainly was much more beautiful. Okay? If I had to choose a beautiful place, I have to say that this one is the best. Now, you can describe that in as many different ways as you want, but you can hear in my answer there, I had the present tense, the past tense, a comparative, a conditional. If I say my grandmother used to say, my grandmother said about this place, I'm bringing in reported speech as well. I'm being authentic and I'm being real. Too many of us these days are walking around with our eyes shut. Even in our own language, we don't tend to experience the beauty and things around us. Just in closing, I want to say that really is the secret of learning English. It's a wake-up call for authenticity, to discover those things which you used to discover as a child. And I'd really recommend that you work with that by exploring in a deeper way themes with your English teacher or with your language partner. I understand that's a very hard thing to do in a group class where maybe even the teacher isn't a native speaker, but you can still do it. Have a look in some old English books, old English novels, and see what you can find. If you have any doubts about that, ask your teacher. Ask your teacher to introduce you to something a little bit deeper and higher. That could be by talking about a book that he's read or something that he's done recently which has meaning. This really is what you're aiming for. That's all I want to say on this, but remember, if your English is a little bit shallow and you're struggling to move on, it's because you're not moving on, and that means change. So just have a think about how you're going to do that. See you. Bye.